Hello, team. We are John and Tara Thorman, your money coaches. And in this financial training video, we're beginning a three-part series on 3 keys to financial success, which are the cash flow, compounding, and leverage.
That's right. And today's video is all about cash flow because cash flow is king, okay? So we're going to get started right after you crush that like button and subscribe to the channel because we want to help you achieve financial freedom faster so you can enjoy it longer.
Yeah, sounds good. So I was thinking a little bit about today and just telling a personal story. I think that's important. And I'm going to be doing some more of that. But imagine taking a new job and moving 1,000 miles away from home.
Wow.
And we knew no one.
Nobody.
And but we did that. We believed that that was the right thing to do, and we were very excited to do it. And so March of 2008, we left Ohio and sold our things, and had a really great place. It was a really great job, really great apartment, and that was all gone by May.
2 months later.
Yeah.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Totally not prepared. Never in a million years.
Expected that to happen.
At all, one bit. I mean, our plan, we had no plan B. Like, there was no plan B.
We were looking to get out of Ohio. I mean, we were ready to go. We had nothing going on there. And, yeah.
And very excited to be here.
Right.
And, of course, wanting to meet new people and all of that. But it was very, very hard.
And so this is 2008 we're talking about, okay?
Right.
And Florida was one of the states that got clobbered in the real estate, the residential real estate meltdown. So here we are, and it's 14.5% unemployment rate.
Yeah, because that all happened in the summer, right? With that, oh, man.
Nobody could find work. Like, it was brutal.
Yes.
So I had recently gone back to school to finish my degree, because I was consulting businesses and I wanted to be a great business consultant and help lots of businesses. And so it's like, let's finish this degree off. So I was back in school full time and I was working full time.
Right.
But then, boop, no cash flow.
Yeah.
Gone.
That was hard.
How do you recover?
Yeah.
What do you do? Right? So we relate to cash flow crises.
Yes. Without a plan. I mean, literally no backup, no resource.
And so really part of it was we are never going to be at the mercy of someone else's emotional stability when it comes to our cash flow, our income. And so, I mean, we had already been self-employed and had some businesses before, but this was just kind of like a whole new level. It's like, really? Like, we can't even trust, a big business to, follow through and do what they intended to do or moved us here to do. So anyways, that was it, right?
Yeah.
All right. So let's look at cash flow. Okay. Your cash flow, because the goal is, how can you keep your cash flow flowing and growing?
I'm sorry. Very good.
You like that? How can you keep your cash flow flowing and growing? Because the idea is to get financial freedom as soon as possible.
That's
right? And yes, you're going to have setbacks, and yes, there's going to be issues, but we want to establish the goal and make sure we're working towards it, right? And I want you to establish a goal of financial freedom and not establish a goal of getting out of debt. And here's why. Because getting out of debt means you're back to zero, and that's not motivating, right? Zero is not the goal. You don't really want to be debt-free. You really want to have financial freedom.
Yes.
So let's set that as the goal, right?
I like that. Very
good. So, flowing and growing, right? Don't spend all your cash flow on your living and your debt as soon as you get it. Right? And we're going to talk a little bit about this because there is an economic principle. It's called the velocity of money. And the issue with that is you want to keep control of your money for as long as possible, but you want to put your money to work to generate more money before you spend it and it dies. Right? There's this cycle of life, okay? And there's this cycle of money. It's the velocity of money. You want to get money, put it to work, get it making more money for you, have it come back to you, and then spend it, some of it, and keep that cycle of growing, going, and you don't want it to die, right? The Jordan River flows into the Dead Sea. And it stops moving. There's nowhere for that river to continue flowing. It stops moving, and the Dead Sea is dead. There's no life there. Nothing lives there. And we don't want dead equity in your balance sheet, and we don't want dead money. We want, the velocity of money. We want you to put money out there, have it make more money and come back to you so you can invest it again and keep going and growing.
That's right.
So everybody, cash flow is king, and here's how it works, okay? Let's pull up, maybe we can see this, okay? We've got cash flow. There's 4 elements to cash flow, all right, that I'm going to teach you today. We got inflows, you got outflows, we've got overflows, and there's backflows, okay? So we're going to run through the cash flows and how you can better manage your cash flow to achieve your financial goals, okay? So let's look here, first of all, at inflows. And now that is your income, okay? Income equals inflows, and you have basically 3 major income sources or streams. Number 1 is active income. That is your JOB. You're just over broke, right? You are going to work. You are active in working. You like the JOB? Just over broke. You're active in working for a paycheck, right? You're trading your time for money, which is kind of crazy, right? Your most precious, valuable resource, your time, you're trading that for a little bit of somebody else's money. Right. But that's okay to get started. I mean, that's good, right? We want to have cash flow. So do that. And it's also for self-employed people, because you own your job, and it's more that than it is owning a business, right? But so anyways, you've got active income is number 1. Number 2 is portfolio income. These are the paper assets, the stocks, the bonds, right? Your pension, maybe if you have one of those, that's your portfolio income. Then number 3 is your recurring income. And again, that comes from your assets. Recurring income are the businesses that you own and your real estate portfolio, right? Or real estate income, the rental properties that you're getting constant cash flow from. So
just real quick, back to our story a little bit.
Yeah.
We didn't have, all we had at the time was the active. It was the job. We lost that. We did have a little bit of recurring. We had that little rental.
One rental.
And then that went south too.
Yeah. Add insult to injury, right? Anyway, so 3 income sources that you've got that we want to encourage you to develop and expand and grow: active income, portfolio income, and recurring income. And of course, the dream is to have enough assets that can produce enough income so that you don't have to participate in an active income job anymore, right? Once you get that replaced, once your assets can produce enough portfolio and recurring income, then you can decide whether you want to continue to work in your job or not. That's financial freedom, okay? So those are the inflows, right? The number 2 element of the cash flows are your outflows, and that is your expenses. And your major expenses, you can put that in between us, are obviously your housing expenses, your transportation expenses, all your personal and household expenses, and the dreaded debt, right? And there's 2 kinds of debt. You've got revolving debt, and you've got your amortized loans, okay? Now, let's take a look at this really quick. No, just over. Actually, this way. Sorry, I want you in the picture too, because you're the eye candy for this thing, right?
Here we go. That's good.
Okay, so inflows of 10,000 minus outflows of 8,000 equals an overflow of $2,000 a month, okay? Now think about this. Where does the overflow go? On your income statement right here, we got income minus expenses. We have an overflow of $2,000. That goes onto your balance sheet, right? Now you've got a couple options. The balance sheet, you can that's assets and liabilities, right? If you've got an overflow of $2,000, you've got to decide, am I going to increase my assets or am I going to decrease my liabilities, right? Now, this is a good spot to be in, but what if you're in a spot where it's reversed? What if your inflows are $8,000 a month and your outflows are $10,000 a month? Yikes! Now, you are in a negative cash flow position, right? Your expenses are more than your income. So you're spending money faster than it's coming in. That's not the place you want to be in. We've been there, not good, right? So that is the backflow. And I'd say it's a backflow because it has to come from your balance sheet. You've got to make up that $2,000. If you make 8 and you spend 10, there's a $2,000 deficit, right? A hole. And you got to backflow. You got to fill that hole from your balance sheet in either selling off assets, right? Maybe you've got a second car you're not using. So you got to sell it off so you have the cash so you can pay those expenses. Or what happens most often is that we go into debt, right? You take out money on your credit card, okay, or you go get a personal loan or a home equity loan, but you get more debt, you take on more debt, increase your liabilities so that you can backflow and pay off all these extra expenses. But you've got to decide, like, there's only those two options, right? If you have a deficit, a negative cash flow, you got to backflow from your balance sheet, okay? So let's take a look at the balance sheet really quick. You've got the balance sheet, assets and liabilities, and your assets minus your liabilities equals your net worth, right? But every month, you're either going to have an overflow, you're going to have a surplus, or you're going to have a backflow because you've got a deficit. And like I said, you've got to just choose how are you going to fill that hole? How are you going to backflow and fill that hole? Are you going to sell assets or are you going to incur more debt? Okay. Now, if either one of those situations, if you're in a backflow situation where you've got to cover, your expenses, you are going to reduce your net worth. Okay. Because either way, if you sell assets off or you incur more liabilities, you're going in the hole. You're reducing your net worth, right? Can you see that? But if you have an overflow, you can decide, am I going to pay off debt or am I going to add more assets? But in doing that, you're going to increase your net worth. Now, here's the thing you got to be really careful of, okay? Wealth is not the removal of liabilities, right? Remember, that just gets you back to zero. Wealth is the accumulation of assets. You've got to have assets, and you really got to have assets that can generate or produce cash flow, because the cash flow goes back to your inflow, and then you maybe can get to the point where you don't need your active income anymore. Remember that? We've got portfolio income, which are your investments, and recurring income, which are your businesses and your real estate. The cash flow generated from these two goes right into your inflow, your income statement. You got to decide what you're going to do. So the overflows, all right, if you can put it into assets, that does two things for you. One, that increases your liquidity, which gives you way more options, right? If something happens, let's say you get injured or you're sick and you can't work for a few weeks or a few months, your liquidity will get you through, okay? But your liquidity also gives you, it's like the gunpowder, right? Or the bullets. It gives you the tool you need to go out and acquire more assets and start achieving your wealth accumulation goals, your financial freedom, right? If you take your overflow and you don't accumulate assets, you take the overflow and you pay it off on your liabilities, it feels good, right? And maybe you impact your cash flow situation a little bit, but what you don't have any ammo, you don't have any assets, you don't have any liquidity to get you through a difficult time or to help you buy another asset. So you really got to consider this, and it's like, okay, what's the best use of my money? It's go acquire another asset. Now, you can still manage your liabilities better. There's debt management things you can do, okay? But I want to encourage us all to focus on asset accumulation. Growing our assets is a priority, I believe, because that's the way to financial freedom over eliminating debt. So remember, on the asset side, we have on the asset side, we're earning compound interest on appreciating assets. That is way more powerful than you paying simple interest on a declining balance. Now, roll that around in your brain for a little while, okay? Earn compound interest on appreciating assets and pay simple interest on a declining balance. That is going to give you better results and help you achieve your financial goals faster. Okay? What do you think about that, baby?
Very good.
Assets are essential for wealth, and wealth is essential for your financial freedom. So it starts, really with cash flow. We've got to find ways to increase your cash flow so that you've got more overflow, so that we can build that up and then start buying more assets to produce more cash flow that comes from portfolio and recurring income. Okay? Now, to gain your financial freedom, you must have assets that produce cash flow, right? That cash flow, back to the income statement, okay? The assets on your balance sheet, we want to concentrate on portfolio income and recurring income. Now, what gets interesting is once we're focused on these assets and accumulating assets, is we want to make sure we're accumulating the right kind of assets that give us the greatest tax efficiency. Here's the thing, the biggest expense in your lifetime is going to be taxes. So as we're accumulating assets and growing our wealth, we've got to be really aware of the tax implications and look at ways to minimize your tax liability, both now, but I think even more so into the future. Because if you look at the tax tables through history, we are right now at some of the lowest income tax rates in history. Like, this is a low income tax period. So it makes most sense for you to pay the taxes now and not defer them. But that's what everybody's doing, right? Your 401k plan, you're deferring taxes into the future. The bait is a little bit of a tax break right now, but it's a trap. Like the fish on the bait, you're hooked. If there's so many experts that are predicting income tax rates maybe doubling within 10 years, just to service the amount of debt that we have at these higher interest rates. Like, it's a nightmare. So as we're accumulating assets that produce cash flow, make sure that we're looking for ways to minimize our tax liability, okay? Because they get taxed differently, right? Like your savings account, your high yield savings account, your money market account, your bonds, that's interest income. Well, interest income is taxed at your highest income tax rates. It's just like your paycheck, it's ordinary income. Well, that's not so good, right? And if you have got non-qualified dividends, that's taxed as your ordinary income. If you have qualified dividends, then you get a break. You pay like long-term capital gains tax. And if you buy an asset and like a stock and you sell it within a year, you're paying short-term capital gains, which is the same as your ordinary income tax, like the highest rate. But if you hold it for a year more, then you pay long-term capital gains, which, depending on your income level, could be 0% or 15% or 20%. But that could be a whole lot less than your ordinary income tax rate. And that carries out into the future as well. Long-term capital gains tax is less than your ordinary income tax. So this is one reason why we really got to reconsider this whole 401k situation, right? Your traditional 401k, traditional IRA, because into the future, if tax rates go up, your ordinary income tax rates go up. Every time you pull money out of your 401k to live on, you're paying the highest taxes. Gross, right?
It's crazy.
But if you sell a investment and you are paying your long-term capital gains tax rate, that could be way less than pulling money out of a 401k. So we gotta consider that. We gotta look at the implications. But the 401k has got so many, you lose control basically of your money, right? The government has got all the rules and restrictions about when you can access it and what penalties you're going to pay and where you can invest that money and how, and they're not going to decide how much you get to keep of it until way later in the future, and they can change the rules. So if you look at your 401k statement, it says, oh, look, we got $1 million, we can retire. Not if they take 40 or 50% of it every time you withdraw it. We don't even think that way, but we need to think that way because taxes are your biggest expense. All right, so outside of our portfolio income, we want to grow our recurring income investments, and those are your business, assets, your businesses that you own or own a part of, and real estate income. These two types of cash flowing assets give you added bonus. They give you tax advantages, and you maintain control of your money.
Right.
So we want all the advantages we can get, right? With our recurring income streams, the businesses and our real estate, you're in control, okay? And you get tax advantages so that you get to keep more of your own money. And that's huge.
Right.
The more money you get to keep now means the more money that you've got to compound over the next, decades until you're done with it. And you can will it to your children or your grandchildren. Remember, this is so important, guys. Cash flow is king, okay? We got to be aware of how our cash is flowing. How is it coming in, and the inflows and the outflows and the overflows, and unfortunately the times of the backflows. We got to fix that. We really want to focus on overflows and putting that overflow into the asset side of our balance sheet so that we can start building our wealth.
That's good.
And we need wealth if we're going to be financially free.
That's right.
We need cash flow coming from our wealth assets of portfolio and recurring income. Okay? Any other comments?
Good job. No.
No?
I'm good.
Okay.
job.
Man, I hope you love this. This has been really fun. It's been great to process and ruminate on this for a while. We'd love to hear your comments down below. If you got some questions, let us know. But remember, tune in, subscribe to the channel so you get notified, because next week we're going to go over the second installment of the series, right? And we're going to be talking about compounding. And most people do not understand the power of compounding, and we're going to break it down for you so that you get it working for you and you.
That's right.
All right, everybody. Have a great week. See you next time.